Nicolas. I'm a software product specialist. And as a software product specialist, I'd like to ask you to stop focusing so much on your product. But first, a bit of background. So indeed, I own this software development agency based in Brussels, Belgium. We've been there for around 12 years now, about 20 people, and we are specialized in helping startups, SaaS startups and marketplace startups mostly. And I would say we have helped about a bit more than 100 startups over the years. And unfortunately, out of those 100, we've seen a lot of failures. And so I think we can attribute those failures to some mistakes, and I'd like to share with you 5 kind of mistakes I've identified with them from real-life examples. So one of our first customers, actually, it was a marketplace in the recruitment space, so connecting job candidates with recruiters. And we built this really nice MVP for them. So we built, a nice interface, nice framework, and everything. And then came the launch date. We put it online, and nobody came. And well, I guess the reason nobody came was that no one was aware that it was there, right? And I guess it comes from this old adage: "We'll build it, and they will come." You've heard that just now. And as you know, it doesn't work, right? And it's interesting because it's still something that people believe, but there are obviously studies about this. When it comes to, for example, mobile apps, I think it's Gartner that says that only 0.01% of apps that are put on the App Store are actually going to work. And the reason is that, well, there's so many competition, right? And it's not enough to just put it out there. Your product needs marketing. Second example, it's a more recent example. We built this how is it called? Like a social, vertical social network for people. So put it online. On the day of the launch, the customers came back to us and they handed us a list of all the features they wanted for version 2.8, right? Instead of, I don't know, focusing on trying to get some traction for the first version. And in agile software development, we have this concept called the cone of uncertainty that you've probably seen if you are a software developer. It essentially says that it's very difficult for a software development team to predict the cost very precisely when you are at the beginning of the project. And the reason is that it's actually, I mean, you don't have a crystal ball, right? It's very difficult to know what's going to happen. There can be any kind of, output events like feedback from customers, maybe competitors, and so yeah, it's very difficult. So you don't have a crystal ball. So I think it doesn't make a lot of sense. And I would even dare to say that it's not very respectful for your customers, because essentially you're telling them that you don't really care about what they're going to say about your product. You have it all planned out. Third example, yeah, that's also something that's kind of related to the first thing. We built this MVP for a fintech company building. It was about cash flow prediction, and we put it online. Same story, and then they came to us and they asked us, "Okay, you've done this nice MVP, but now how should we price it? Can you help us?" And I guess, well, to be fair, we are knowledgeable. We are passionate about the SaaS industry, so we can give some advice based on what we see on the market, like the trends and so on. But the reality is that we don't actually know, because we're not the target market. They should probably have better asked their customers, maybe do some kind of competitive analysis, or essentially, make a business plan, right? So that's a pretty common mistake as well. And keep in mind, these are not product people, because I'm a product guy, but these people are not technical at all. They're not focused on product, but they still make that mistake. The fourth one is probably my favorite one, or actually it's the opposite, because we see that so often, and it's really infuriating. There was this customer working in a specific industry again, and a new kind of regulation, a new law was about to pass, and they wanted to capture that opportunity with a new piece of software, but the day the law passed, they actually didn't release the software. And even 1 year later, it still wasn't out. Problems, obviously, competitors were there, other alternatives were there, but still they were nitpicking about very stupid details, like like some copy on the about page and something like that. So I guess it's kind of the fear of failure, I suppose. I'm sure you've seen this very famous quote that I really like to share as well from the founder of LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman. And essentially, yeah, I think they would have better release something on the first day, and then try to get feedback for it to improve later on. And the last example I want to give as well is it's a different kind of customer. So we also help legacy software get into SaaS, right? So we put them on the cloud, essentially. And they reached out to us because they were worried about the new competitor coming up, which was raising money and apparently very successfully. And they told us, okay, how much to clone this thing? And I mean, I can understand it, but I think it's a focus on product. But here it's even worse because they're focusing not even on their own product, right? So, and even if we were able to copy paste, which is very difficult, of course, it wouldn't be a good idea because we would always be chasing the competitor, right? Because obviously it's like a moving target. The competitor would still keep going. So we actually advise them to rather do something else and find a new edge and a different angle to be better in that specific angle than just trying to copy paste and be a copycat. So there are obviously many well-documented ways to avoid these mistakes, and I just want to share 3 of them today. The first one is, it might seem obvious, but it's really about trying to see trying to focus on what you're trying to solve, right? The problem, not the solution. Might sound obvious, but it's not. I mean, your customer is essentially buying your product to solve a problem, obviously, right? But what people forget is that they are already solving the problem in a different way, right? Hopefully a less optimal way than the one you want to sell them, but they're still already having a way. And you have to understand that, right? There is this framework that you might know or not, I don't know, which is called JTBD, which I really like to use in all our new projects, which is about, phrasing it like this. Your piece of software is doing a job, right? I mean, your customer is hiring this software, and by hiring your software, it is firing something else. It could be a different kind of software. It could be a manual process, but it could also be real people, like literally firing and frontally, because software does that as well. But so really think about this. You might have seen this picture that's basically people waiting for their commute, and I guess the top image is from 1 century ago, I guess, and well, the other one is more recent. And the point here is that products come and go, but the problems stay the same, right? They just find new ways to solve the same problem. So I guess, try to fall in love with the problem, not the solution. And if you don't know what problem to solve, then maybe you can focus on something you like particularly, something that you are passionate about, something that a problem that you have yourself, of course, or something you are really knowledgeable about. Second piece of advice, trying to do the things in the right order. I want to give another example here as well of another customer that it was a meal delivery marketplace, like basically homemade meals that you can sell to your neighbors. And they actually decided to build their community before building the product. So they grew a Facebook group, I think up to 50,000 people, which is a lot for Belgium. And with that, they already had a user base, essentially. So it allowed them to raise money. I think they raised $2 million or something like that, even before building the product. So it's very interesting because they could use that money to build the product. And I mean, as soon as the product was ready, already the people were available. Something else about this, you probably have seen that before, right? It's the lean canvas, actually. It's a variation of the business model canvas that we use in the lean startup methodology. It's essentially a one-page business plan. And I usually like to share that with our customers because, again, focusing on the solution, but when you think about it, the solution is just one box of all those, right? So you could technically make a lot of different kind of businesses with almost the same kind of solutions. And here I'm using solution as another word for product, right? In this case, it's software. Because you could, have different kind of customers. You could sell it over different channels. You could have different pricing system and so on. To give an obvious example that may not be the best, but it's very clear. When you compare, for example, today the mobile apps of Facebook and LinkedIn, they look very similar, right? There's a news feed, you can share articles, you can like them, you can comment on them, and so on. But I mean, it's obviously a totally different job they're doing there, right? You wouldn't probably share baby pictures on LinkedIn, for example. And the third advice is trying to focus on feedback. And again, I guess really from the start, even before you have a product. Again, it's not. It might be counterintuitive, but for example, really focus on the problem again. So, for example, if you're trying to build a fitness tracking app. Instead of trying to make a prototype and show it to your target audience, try to see how they do before. So maybe you would go to gyms, see what they're doing to track their fitness stats. Maybe they are using another app that you don't know. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're just using pen and paper. Then why? Maybe it's not convenient to use an app in that environment. I don't know. But the point is to really try to get problem feedback. So try to make sure you understand the problem you're trying to solve. Only then you can try to, find out a solution and try to present it. You can do mock-ups, with Balsamiq, for example, or any kind of other solution, or again, pen and paper. It's obviously a cheaper way to try that even before coding. At Belighted, we do those so-called design sprint that you probably have heard as well. A lot of agencies are doing that now. The point is to spend 1 week with the customer building a solution. It's very fast, actually. It doesn't cost that much, but you can already test it with customers very early. And in our experience, it's solving like 80% of the questions or the feedback that you can get. And as you can imagine, it's better to know that before coding because it's easier to change something before it's a hard code. And the reason for that, I think, is again another quote that I love is people don't really care about how your product is working, like the inner workings. They just see the interface, they see themselves interacting with them, and I guess that's why most of the feedback is going to come from this stage. And to conclude, I guess, when I shared those examples of my customers, maybe you have thought, like, well, this guy has really stupid customers, right? But obviously there are studies about this, and one of the most famous ones is this one from a Harvard Business Review, I think, which essentially says that most of the consumer products are going to fail when they're launched. Another one I liked is this one from CB Insight, and you see that it's the top 20 reasons startup failed, and the top 2 actually could be solved with by essentially stopping producing the wrong features or product. Thank you. If you want to know more, I have a checklist that goes into further detail. Thank you.